Okay, so day 2 of my illustrious drive. This camp mattress does not work. Either I grabbed the wrong one or I just need a new camp mattress. It deflated somewhere through the night, and I think that the floor of this vehicle may be even more uncomfortable than the ground. It was pretty horrid. I woke up in a great deal of pain. But that's okay, because tonight I will be sleeping in an actual hotel room. And I look forward to that. I will say this, Arizona is absolutely beautiful. I've forgotten. My grandparents lived here for a really good chunk of their lives, and all the time I came out to visit them, this was where they were. And it is gorgeous country. Just absolutely gorgeous country. And the sun is very slowly rising over the mountains, and it is almost mystical. I wish that I had time to go visit Taos or some other sacred area here, because there are some places I've heard of that are just amazing to be, where the energy is supposed to be very vibrant and everything feels good. A lot of artists like to go out there, and I can sincerely use that right now. But alas, I am still headed to California as quickly as I can. So maybe on my way back I'll make a stop or two. It's always unfortunate when you can't stop and smell the roses when you're traveling. I also realize how much I greatly miss traveling with other people. Which is funny, because I always remember enjoying traveling alone. And maybe after a couple of days, that will be an enjoyment to me. I remember when I first did my magic tour, when I was 18 maybe. It was a little magic tour of 4 states. And I remember by the 3rd or 4th day, I thought I was in heaven. I had never experienced anything that wonderful as just being on the open road, just driving, just experiencing life. That was all. And it was almost spiritual. And I think perhaps the difference might have been that there was a purpose. I was heading from show to show, and even though I did not like doing those shows, because I was doing these horrible anti-drug, alcohol, and tobacco show that someone else had come up with, and I was just doing the tour for them and doing their material, and I hate doing other people's material. And it was really not a good experience. But I think if I had been enjoying it, if I'd been doing my own show, I think it would have been fantastic, because there is something amazing about it being just you and the open road and the people you meet along the way. I remember just really enjoying running into people everywhere I went. I remember I ran into this long-haired carpenter guy who was a really nice guy, and invited me back to his house to smoke weed. And of course I didn't smoke weed, so I had to turn him down. But I almost wish I could have, just gone to his place to talk to him, because, he was just a cool guy. And but sometimes if you don't if you don't do the things other people do, it makes them uncomfortable. But there are such fascinating people out there, and I really regret in many ways living such a secluded lifestyle, because the world is absolutely full of fascinating people, and I feel like I've lived my whole life not meeting them, and that's pretty sad. But there is something amazing just about driving, just about watching the landscape rush by you and feeling yourself gaining ground. Even if maybe you're not particularly going anywhere, but you're just gaining ground. You're covering ground. You're passing the world. And you know that one way or the other you're on your way to something. Maybe something good, maybe something bad, but everything's good in the end. Every time you have an experience, every time life gives you anything, in some ways I almost welcome the bad experiences, because even though I hate them at the time, I always learn something. And years from now, I get to look back on it with an extraordinary amount of fondness. In fact, some of my best experiences of life have been bad experiences, which look really good in retrospect. Partially because they're over, but partially because I realized that they were good at the time, and it was just my perception that was negative. There's a lot to be learned by just being by yourself, and driving. I suggest it to everyone, get in your car, drive across America, if you ever get the chance. Or, if you want to have a lot more fun, drive across Europe. America's awesome, don't get me wrong, but the idea of being able to drive across Europe, where you're constantly encountering a slightly different culture everywhere. America, even though we certainly have varying cultures, we are incredibly homogenized, and I know Europe is getting that way too, and it's unfortunate, because there's nothing worse than homogenization. I know that some people might think that as an Omnist, that's what I want, and it's not. I don't glory in making things the same. I don't want things to be the same. I love the variation. To me, it's just about being able to hold all of those in your head at the same time and realizing that there is no contradiction. That all those differences are exactly what they're supposed to be. And glorying in them, instead of getting frustrated. And yes, we'll always get a little frustrated. Personally, there's nothing more frustrating than running into someone I can't communicate with. That's one of my big phobias, is the inability to communicate. And so when I run into someone else who doesn't speak my language, or doesn't speak my language very well, and it's difficult for me to get my ideas across, or just order an icy from them, it's hard. It's hard. It gives me an extraordinary amount of anxiety. But that's okay. That's okay, because it's amazing when they do finally understand what you're saying, or you understand what they're saying, and there's this moment of clarity, and you both kind of smile at each other, and you meet on that moment on something as simple as an understanding. something that you and I and everyone who speaks the same language completely takes for granted. How amazing it is when you do manage to communicate with someone that you thought you couldn't. Well, I'm going to sign off for now. I've jabbered on long enough. Talk to you guys in a bit.